do mostly chores, but at home.
Yeah. Well, it's not like they added onto your house over the closure. How many chores can you have?
A lot more than I thought I could.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you could join us. So I'm gonna put a post on the course blog this afternoon. There's a lot of discussion among the teachers and administrators about grades for the semester. And I'm a little concerned about it because one of the things that's coming up is, you know how teachers so often think about things like accountability. And it's true, a lot of our students are not showing up on their blogs or on the calls that we're having at 1 o'clock every day. So on one hand, teachers look at that, administrators look at that, and they're concerned about students not doing their jobs. I'm a little concerned because I don't want that to affect anybody negatively. And for my part, I don't know what I don't know. And what I mean by that is I don't know exactly what it's like for everyone in their homes at 1 o'clock on weekdays. I don't know exactly what people are dealing with when I don't see them in class. So I'm feeling reluctant to penalize anyone, but at the same time, I also want to make sure that we can defend your performance to anybody who asks. So if you can, if you haven't put up a post on your blog recently, give me an excuse to celebrate you and say that you're doing your job. And if you have a friend who hasn't been showing up or hasn't been posting on their blogs, give them a little bit of encouragement. I'm not going to look to penalize anyone, like I said. I'm not going to look to punish anyone or drop somebody's grade. But I also want to make sure that where the school's concerned, that if I give you a grade that is at least as good as your last progress report, which is my plan, that we all feel like there's justification. And I want to make sure that that's clear. So I'm going to pause and ask if anyone has any questions.
Is it okay if we make like another like blog on our blog? You know how there's like where you can create a new other one, like a new set for a different thing, like for what things that we have that we do at home and stuff like that that we want to share, but we don't want to keep it mixed up with their schoolwork?
Totally okay. It's a great idea.
Okay.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions about this or anything related to it? Okay.
Dogs allowed to listen to your story?
What's that, Ray?
Are dogs allowed to listen to your story?
Dogs are especially welcome to listen to my story. Ray, if we were in person, I'd give you a high five and hug you for that one. Thanks. Put a smile on my face. What was the last thing you remember from yesterday, those of you who were with me?
We were talking about Montag and how he is like character. I forgot the word. The personality changed, or like he was being more open-minded.
Yeah, that's for sure. His personality is definitely getting more toward the human and the passionate when it comes to what we don't know and how we can live better lives. What's he on his way to do?
Yeah, he was getting money, right, for something, like something about money, like from the bank or something for Faber.
That's right. So Montag now is in touch with Faber, the professor, and the two of them have hatched a plan to basically bring down society as they know it, because they really want for people to get these ideas that books used to contain. And remember that Faber says it's not the actual books that are the thing. It's what's in books that matters. It's the quality, it's the leisure time, it's the ability to act on our thinking and our belief systems. Now, originally they were talking about framing the firemen and setting fire to their houses when they were revealed to have books. But first, Montag has to go back to work. So what did Faber give Montag to help him out?
An earpiece.
Yeah, so now they can communicate with each other even when they're at distance. So let's see what happened then. Oh, and I almost forgot. Before that, Montag goes home. Who's in Montag's house right now?
Mildred.
The chief. Oh, never mind.
That's okay. What did you say, Deanna?
Isn't it Mildred's like friends?
Right. So not nice people. They don't care about their kids. They don't understand what Montag is on about, because now Montag unplugged the TV, which is like, oh my God, if you've ever walked into a room and shut off someone's TV program while they're in the middle, that's not going to get a good reaction. So here we are. Well, Mr. Montag, said Mrs. Phelps, do you want us to vote for a man like that? Mildred beamed. You just run away from the door, Guy, and don't make us nervous. But Montag was gone and back in a moment, and here we go, with a book in his hand. Guy, damn it all, damn it all, damn it. Now that's Faber talking in Montag's ear. What have you got there? Isn't that a book? I thought that all special training these days was done by film. Mrs. Phelps blinked. You reading up on fireman theory? Theory, hell, said Montag. It's poetry. Montag, a whisper. Leave me alone. Montag felt himself turning in a great circling roar and buzz and hum. Montag, don't. Did you hear them? Did you hear those monsters talking about monsters? Bye. Oh God, the way they jabber about people and their own children and themselves, and the way they talk about their husbands, and the way they talk about war. Damn it, I stand here and I can't believe it. I didn't say a single word about any war, I'll have you know, said Mrs. Phelps. As for poetry, I hate it, said Mrs. Bowles. Have you ever heard any? Montag. Faber's voice scraped away at him. You'll ruin everything. Shut up, you fool. All three women were on their feet. Sit down. They sat. I'm going home, quavered Mrs. Bowles. Montag, please, in the name of God, what are you up to? Pleaded Faber. Why don't you just read us one of those poems from your little book? Mrs. Phelps nodded. I think that'd be very interesting. That's not right, wailed Mrs. Bowles. We can't do that. Well, look at Mr. Montag. He wants to. I know he does. And if we listen nice, Mr. Montag will be happy, and then maybe we can go on and do something else. She glanced nervously at the long emptiness of the walls enclosing them. Hey, I'm getting some feedback. If you want to participate, obviously chime in whenever you want, but if you're not, will you mute your mic? Because we're getting some weird noise artifacts on the Zoom call. Thanks. Montag, go through with this and I'll cut off. I'll leave. The beetle jabbed his ear. What good is all this? What do you prove? Scare the hell out of them, that's what. Scare the living daylights out. Now, right now, Montag is not thinking this through. He just saw his wife, saw her friends, listened to what they said, and got so angry he just wanted to, like, get it out. But Faber is thinking he's going to blow everything. Mildred looked at the empty air. Now, Guy, just who are you talking to? A silver needle pierced his brain. Montag, listen, only one way out. Play it as a joke. Cover up. Pretend you aren't mad at all. Then walk to your wall incinerator and throw the book in. Mildred had already anticipated this in a quavery voice. Ladies, once a year, every fireman's allowed to bring one book home from the old days to show how silly it all was, how nervous that sort of thing can make you, how crazy. Guy's surprise tonight is to read you one sample to show how mixed up things were, so none of us will ever have to bother our little old heads about that junk again. Isn't that right, darling? He crushed the book in his fists. Say yes. His mouth moved like Faber's. Yes. Mildred snatched the book with a laugh. Here, read this one. No, I take it back. Here's that real funny one you read out loud today. Ladies, you won't understand a word. It goes umpty-tumpty ump. Go ahead, Guy. Guy, that page, dear. He looked at the open page. A fly stirred its wings softly in his ear. Read. What's the title, dear? Dover Beach. Now, this is a real poem. His mouth was numb. Now read in a nice, clear voice and go slow. The room was blazing hot. He was all fire. He was all coldness. They sat in the middle of an empty desert with 3 chairs and him standing, swaying, and waiting for Mrs. Phelps to stop straightening her dress hem and Mrs. Bowles to take her fingers away from her hair. Then he began to read in a low, stumbling voice that grew firmer as he progressed from line to line, and his voice went out across the desert into the whiteness and around the 3 sitting women there in the great hot emptiness. Now, in the book, it actually has the poem, and I'll read it in a second here. But while I read these lines, I want us to be thinking about something. You know, the author, Ray Bradbury, could have chosen any poem in the world to represent things here, but he picked this one. And while I'm reading it, I want us to think about why, and then we'll spend a couple minutes talking about that when I'm done. The sea of faith was once two at the full, and round earth's shore lay like the folds of a bright girdle furled. But now I only hear its melancholy, long withdrawing roar, retreating to the breath of the night wind, down the vast edges drear and naked shingles of the world. The chairs creaked under the three women. Montag finished it out. Ah, love, let us be true to one another. For the world which seems to lie before us like a land of dreams, so various, so beautiful, so new, hath really neither joy, nor love, nor light, nor certitude, nor peace, nor help for pain. And we are here, as on a darkling plain, swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight, where ignorant armies clash by night. Mrs. Phelps was crying. The others in the middle of the desert watched her crying grow very loud as her face squeezed itself out of shape. They sat, not touching her, bewildered with display. She sobbed uncontrollably. Montag himself was stunned and shaken. Shh, said Mildred. You're all right, Clara. Now, Clara, snap out of it. Clara, what's wrong? I, sobbed Mrs. Phelps. I don't know. I just don't know. Oh. Mrs. Bowles stood up and glared at Montag. You see, I knew it. That's what I wanted to prove. I knew it would happen. I've always said poetry and tears, poetry and suicide and crying and awful feelings, poetry and sickness, all that mush. Now I've had it proved to me. You're nasty, Mr. Montag. You're nasty. Why did the author pick this poem, and what the heck is going on here? Any ideas?
Probably because it meant something.
Yeah.
And they knew it mean something to them
Okay.
during
Anybody?
their time.
Yeah.
At the beginning, like it just made the world sound like really dark, I guess, like a dark place, and like that they need some type of hope, I guess.
Yeah. The sea of faith was once two at the full, but now I only hear its melancholy, long withdrawing roar. And then at the end, and we are here as on a darkling plain, swept with confused arms of struggle and flight. So in a way, it sounds like a dark poem, but what's really like going on here for the women who are listening? Why do you think Mrs. Phelps started crying?
It's probably because it brought up like a lot of the sadness that they feel with their lives.
Yeah. And they have so much that they're holding back. Because remember when Mildred tried to overdose on the sleeping pills? And you know, Sam, I think it might be your microphone. Can you mute for a second and see if that makes a difference? Yeah, perfect. Okay, thanks. And then if you want to chime in, just go ahead and unmute. And Sam, I don't know if you know this, but the easy way to unmute, if you ever want to talk, is just to press down on your space bar. If you're on a computer, you want to test it for a sec? Yeah, perfect. So Mildred was holding back so much pain that she tried to overdose on sleeping pills, right? And her friends are kind of like everybody else. And remember the mechanics, the emergency medical technicians who showed up to help Mildred were saying that thousands of people try to kill themselves every night. If you watch enough TV or take enough sleeping pills or whatever in this society that we have in the book, it's like you keep that stuff over here. But if you actually read poetry and you think and you feel, oh my gosh, some of it sneaks up. And I think you're right, Elva, that's what happened with Mrs. Phelps. Anybody else have some thoughts on this before I move on?
The poetry like reminded me of like songs, like they do like the same effect on people, and like if you think about it, songs are poetry. So yeah, it's just about.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that, Elva. Good point. Faber said, now. Montag felt himself turn and walk to the wall slot and drop the book in through the brass notch to the waiting flames. Silly words, silly, awful, hurting words, said Mrs. Bowles. Why do people want to hurt people? Not enough hurt in the world. You got to tease people with stuff like that? Clara. Now, Clara, begged Mildred, pulling her arm. Come on, let's be cheery. You turn the family on now. Go ahead. Let's laugh and be happy. Stop crying. We'll have a party. No, said Mrs. Bowles. I'm trotting right straight home. You want to visit my house and my family? Well and good, but I won't come in this fireman's crazy house again in my lifetime. Go home. Montag fixed his eyes upon her quietly. Go home and think of your first husband divorced, and your second husband killed in a jet, and your third husband blowing his brains out. Go home and think of the dozen abortions you've had. Go home and think of that, and your damn cesarean sections too, and your children who hate your guts. Go home and think how it all happened, and what did you ever do to stop it? Go home, he yelled, before I knock you down and kick you out the door. What in the heck is Montag doing? Why do you think he blows up like this?
Trying to open their eyes to the reality of what's going on.
Yeah. And here he's being told that he's the wrong one. And in the meantime, he's looking around at their crazy lives and thinking, how dare you? Whatever happened here? Doors slammed and the house was empty. Montag stood alone in the winter weather with the parlor walls the color of dirty snow. In the bathroom, water ran. He heard Mildred shake the sleeping tablets into her hand. Fool, Montag. Fool, fool, oh God, you silly fool. Shut up. He pulled the green bullet from his ear and jammed it into his pocket. It sizzled faintly. Fool, fool. He searched the house and found the books where Mildred had stacked them behind the refrigerator. Some were missing, and he knew that she had started on her own slow process of dispersing the dynamite in her house, stick by stick. But he was not angry now, only exhausted and bewildered with himself. He carried the books into the backyard and hid them in the bushes near the alley fence. For tonight only, he thought, in case she decides to do any more burning. He went back through the house. Mildred? He called at the door of the darkened bedroom. There was no sound. Outside, crossing the lawn on his way to work, he tried not to see how completely dark and deserted Clarice McClellan's house was. On the way downtown, he was so completely alone with his terrible error that he felt the necessity for the strange warmness and goodness that came from a familiar and gentle voice speaking in the night. Already, in a few short hours, it seemed that he had known Faber a lifetime. Now he knew that he was two people, that he was above all Montag, who knew nothing, who did not even know himself a fool, but only suspected it. And he knew that he was also the old man who talked to him as the train was sucked from one end of the night city to the other on one long, sickening gasp of motion. In the days to follow, and in the nights when there was no moon, and in the nights when there was a very bright moon shining on the earth, the old man would go on with this talking, drop by drop, stone by stone, flake by flake. His mind would well over at last, and he would not be Montag anymore. This the old man told him, assured him, promised him. He would be Montag plus Faber, fire plus water, and then one day, after everything had mixed and simmered and worked away in silence, there would be neither fire nor water, but wine. Out of two separate and opposite things, a third. And one day, he would look back upon the fool and know the fool. Even now, he could feel the start of the long journey, the leave-taking, the going away from the self he had been. So when we were talking about Montag's personality, his character, at the beginning, he was just a fireman, and he didn't understand what Clarice was talking about. Then he became passionate about books and realized something was missing, and he added Faber into his life. Now he's feeling like he's kind of both of these things, but he wants to combine them. Montag, the man of action, but also Montag, the man of thinking. And what he's feeling right now is that out of those two parts, he'll become a better version of himself that isn't really two different things, but it's one thing with the best of both of those. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It was good listening to the beetle hum, the sleepy mosquito buzz, and delicate filigree murmur of the old man's voice, at first scolding him, and then consoling him in the late hour of night as he emerged from the steaming subway toward the firehouse world. Pity, Montag, pity. Don't haggle and nag them. You were so recently of them yourself. They are so confident that they will run on forever. But they won't run on. They don't know that this is all one huge, big, blazing meteor that makes a pretty fire in space, but someday it'll have to hit. They see only the blaze, the pretty fire as you saw it. Montag, old men who stay at home, afraid, tending their peanut brittle bones, have no right to criticize. Yet you almost killed things at the start. Watch it. I'm with you. Remember that. I understand how it happened. I must admit that your blind raging invigorated me. God, how young I felt. But now, I want you to feel old. I want a little of my cowardice to be distilled in you tonight. The next few hours, when you see Captain Beatty, tiptoe around him. Let me hear him for you. Let me feel the situation out. Survival is our ticket. Forget the poor, silly women. I made them unhappier than they have been in years, I think, said Montag. It shocked me to see Mrs. Phelps cry. Maybe they're right. Maybe it's best not to face things, to run, have fun. I don't know. I feel guilty. No, you mustn't. If there were no war, if there was peace in the world, I'd say, fine, have fun. But Montag, you mustn't go back to being just a fireman. All isn't well with the world. Which goes back, it's kind of like the world we're living in now. If people were having fun and just enjoying themselves and everything was going well for everyone, I might be the first person to say, go ahead. The problem is, it's not going well. People are getting sick and not getting the help they need. People are, even before coronavirus, people are living lives that are really unequal and suffering, and they don't need to be. At least I don't think they do. And we have a lot of unhappiness. So it's not like people are going along and things are great. And Faber's saying, you're right to be concerned about these things. Montag perspired. Montag, are you listening? My feet, said Montag. I can't move them. I feel so damn silly. My feet won't move. Listen, easy now, said the old man gently. I know. You're afraid of making mistakes. Don't be. Mistakes can be profited by. Man, when I was younger, I shoved my ignorance in people's faces. They beat me with sticks. By the time I was 40, my blunt instrument had been honed to a fine cutting point for me. If you hide your ignorance, no one will hit you and you'll never learn. Now pick up your feet, into the firehouse with you. We're twins. We're not alone anymore. We're not separated out in different parlors with no contact between. If you need help when Beatty pries at you, I'll be sitting right here in your eardrum making notes. Montag felt his right foot, then his left foot move. Old man, he said, stay with me. So when we pick up tomorrow, Montag's going to go into the firehouse and talk with Beatty and the other firemen, but Faber's going to be with him. I'm interested before we go in that point about mistakes, and I feel like I'm going to make that the post for the day. Everyone's so afraid to make mistakes. Why?
They don't want to be embarrassed.
They don't want to be embarrassed. Okay. So, I see the football sign on the wall behind you, Sam. If you didn't ever want to be embarrassed on the football field, easiest way to make that happen is don't go on the football field. So why would you still go on the football field?
To put yourself out there and be better and
Ooh.
learn from your mistakes.
Are you saying that mistakes are a way to get better?
Yeah. Because then you can learn from.
Yeah. Anybody else have thoughts on that? Sam's saying we can learn from them. I know.
Well, people are always like talking about how you need to make mistakes to like learn from them, and if you don't, then you're never gonna grow. So like if these people are too scared to like be open and like put themselves out there, like Sam said, then like they can't really like be better people. They'll just stay the same like forever.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe like also people don't want to make mistakes because they've been making the same mistake like maybe like more than once, like for example like in a subject or at school, and then they've been told like, oh, you didn't learn this, and that kind of stuff.
Okay. Anybody else on that? So I'm wondering how we can use our mistakes to make us feel better. Not actually feel better, but learn better. Do you think that Montag's on the right track in making his mistakes, or do you think he should be on the sidelines and not get on the field at all?
Like not making like not making mistakes was was like how he was living his life before, and he was like pretty miserable. Like he just like stuck to like the basic like everyone else, and now maybe he has like a shot at happiness.
Yeah, I think you're right. So in this case, the way for Montag to move forward and make some progress is to make what looks like a pretty awful mistake. And now we're going to see, I mean, this was kind of a trial, right? I mean, being with Mildred and his friends, if he made a mistake, it's not like any of them were going to kill him or burn him alive. Now he's going to talk to Beatty. So now it's like from the practice field to the Super Bowl, and we're going to see if he survives. Stay tuned for tomorrow. Hey, Sam, do you know who Brendan Iambadejo is?
No, I don't. Why?
Played football at UCLA and then went on to the Baltimore Ravens and won a Super Bowl with them. He was a linebacker.
No, I don't know.
Okay. Well, I was wondering because I'm working out with him on Zoom today at 5. And if I can get you a free link, I wanted to know if you wanted to join.
Yeah, I'd love to join.
Okay. I'm going to see what I can do and send you a link. It's through the UCLA
Okay,
alumni, and they sent me an invitation. Okay. Football reminded me. Hey, everybody, before we go, does anybody have any questions or comments?
Can my girlfriend join your class?
This one?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
She answered the question, is that like enough for initiation?
Hey, you know what? Being a friend of yours is initiation enough. She's in. What's her name?
Did you ask what her name was?
Yeah.
Oh, Nayeli.
Hi, Mayeli. You're welcome. She giggles. That's enough. All right. Listen, I'm going to put up a blog post today about the grades and about participation and all that good stuff. I'm preaching to the choir because you're the ones that are here. If you're in the AP section, please remember to post your essays if you haven't yet so that we can talk about those tomorrow. I'm also going to have some practice questions and we're going to lay out a little bit of a schedule. And I know that you've had a lot to do for Mrs. Hennings, which is why I went light this week. If anybody needs me, I'm on email. Otherwise, see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
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 Have a good day.
Have a good day.
Bye.